Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Islamic Finance at the Capital. We are honored today to have Tan Sri Muhammad Ali Hashim, the Deputy President of the Malaysian Islamic Chamber of Commerce or MICC. Welcome to the show, Tan Sri.
Thank you for having me, Amirul.
The topic of our discussion today is business jihad.
Yes.
Basically, jihad 101. What is jihad?
Yes, jihad is always a controversial word, and I have been cautioned by many friends not to associate business with jihad, particularly because of the fear.
In Malaysia or overseas or both?
Particularly in Malaysia as well as overseas.
Even in Malaysia?
Oh yes,
Right.
indeed. And this is perhaps because many of us are ignorant about the true meaning of jihad, and sometimes Muslims ourselves, or even if they know the meaning of true jihad, they also are worried of its implications. Because jihad has been unfortunately hijacked by the extremists. On the one hand, you have people like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda who had hijacked jihad for their own ends, for extreme Muslim agenda. And on the other, of course, the United States, particularly under Bush and Newcon, they also hijacked the term in order to turn it against the Muslims. But within the context of the Malaysian Ummatun Wasata concept, Wasata means Muslims must find a middle path, middle way. And I think jihad must still be employed by Muslims, must be encouraged to be adopted, especially in its application for non-violent, through non-violent means. And there is no better application than in business and in corporate activities. Hence, business jihad. Business jihad fundamentally means getting Muslims to work hard, to diligently struggle to make success of their business. And Islam teaches Muslims to pursue business as a career. 9/10 of livelihood comes from business, says the Prophet. And unfortunately today, many Muslims are lagging behind in terms of their economic pursuits and so on, simply because most of them shy away from business undertakings.
But isn't business jihad as what you propose, isn't it enough for Muslims just to pay their corporate zakat and to give a donation? Isn't that it?
No, that's not sufficient. Right. Paying zakat is obligatory on any Muslim, whether you're a businessman or not. But the problem today, the challenge for Muslims is because simply bulk of the Muslim population all over the world suffering from poverty, marginalization, and they are generally poor. Look at the Arab countries. 2 out of every 5 young Arabs are unemployed. Hence, economic poverty is the real cause of is the real root of the problem among Muslims.
So, in business jihad, what do you propose to do?
Business. If you look at the poverty, if you look at developed countries, how did they overcome their poverty challenge? It's simply through growing businesses that generate economic activity, create wealth, and create a lot of employment activities. And this is what is needed by Muslim countries. And look at Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya today. Their biggest challenge is because of poverty and because a lot of youth are simply unemployed. We are fortunate in Malaysia because business is very active, it's a very dominant sector, but we need to do more, especially among Muslims. And this is why jihad is important, because you will realize that in Malaysia, even though we are developed among one of the most developed Islamic countries, the Muslim population is still lagging so far behind. It's still being marginalized. And it is therefore incumbent upon Muslims in particular, and all entrepreneurs, to subscribe to this idea, make a success of it, so that we can really bring up the masses.
Can you give examples of what do you actually need to do in business jihad?
Well, fundamentally, what the Muslim needs is, first of all, a correct perception about business. And I firmly believe today many Muslims shy away from business because they always associate business with materialism, with this worldly way of life. And hence, many parents, teachers, ulamas, ustads, and so on, will discourage even people from going into business. And this is the biggest danger that threatens Muslim society. Because many young Muslims prefer to go to the mosque and pray. There's no harm in spiritual pursuit as such. But when all of them are also poor at the same time and dependent on others to cater to their economic needs, and there lies the danger. And business jihad is about getting entrepreneurs, businessmen, Muslim as well as non-Muslim, to come forward, to play their role, and to convince Muslim, particularly the young generation of Muslims all over the world that business is a solution and Islam is a solution, and combining business and Islamic principles is a viable practical solution, because the Prophet himself, after all, was a businessman before he became a prophet, and Islam itself came down, the Al-Quran, for example, came down through to a community of traders and a community of businessmen in Mecca. It didn't go to the rural area, it went to the city. And the Prophet and the Arabs and his colleagues at that point of time were all largely businessmen. And there is a clear prophetic saying that, as I mentioned earlier, 9/10 of livelihood comes from business. And we have been lagging behind simply because we have overlooked, we have not translated that prophetic saying into reality today.
But you seem to be talking in rhetorics. I mean, can you give specific examples in whatever industry, maybe pharmaceutical or manufacturing or automotive? How do you implement the concept of business jihad?
Yes, this is the problem today. I mean, business jihad is an ideology.
Right.
Is a motivational source of motivation. Is a concept, an idea that will encourage Muslims, particularly young ones, to go into business and build a business career, seriously building it until you achieve success. Now, that is important because today many of them, as I said earlier, shy away because in Islam, the wrong perception that we see today predominates in society is related to associating business with what is bad in everyday life. For example, business is regarded as a source of all what is wrong with society. It's blamed because it resulted in perhaps materialism, a materialistic outlook, an individualistic outlook, and a hedonistic outlook. And we need to challenge all this. And it is obvious that business also is a solution, because without a greater business effort, without success in business, there is no way in which the Muslim community not only can catch up, but really can contribute their share. This is what is needed by Malaysia if we talk about increasing, doubling or tripling income of the average Malaysian. Then more and more Malaysians, especially Malays and Muslims in particular, because they are lagging so far behind, they have not been involved in business, they have not been active in business, in fact they shy away from business, they have to be brought forward. Their mindset will have to be changed, their perception about business needs to be changed. Hence, if you succeed in this effort to convince people that through business you can also perform your duty towards society, towards Islam, and all for good, not necessarily to violent means, because business, after all, is not a violent career. It's definitely not. It is actually creating wealth, enhancing economic value, creating job opportunities, and meaning, in short, is a jihad for prosperity, jihad for economic development, and not violent jihad as we know it today.
You were invited to give a talk on this topic at one of the leading universities in United Kingdom.
Yes.
How was the response towards your talk?
Yes, Alhamdulillah, it was at the Oxford University, and it was followed through by the university after that, studying this concept closely, and how it was practiced at Johor Corporation. I was the CEO of Johor Corporation for about 28 years, and we have a track record of trying to translate the concept of business jihad into reality. And Alhamdulillah, today, Johor Corporation is recognized as one of the more successful conglomerates in Malaysia. It is largely due to the spirit of business jihad that is embedded into all my colleagues at Johor Corporation at that point of time, who worked extremely hard, who saw business in the right perspective, and who was prepared to dedicate their career, their lives even, their whole daily, whatever they do, to the success of the concept of business jihad. And it is seen actually in terms of Jacob itself. Today, employing more than 65,000 people and accounting for having more than 14 billion ringgit in terms of assets all over the world.
Hold on to your thoughts, Tan Sri. We shall take a commercial break and we shall be back after this. Welcome back to Islamic Finance at the Capital. Tan Sri, just now we were discussing on how business jihad can be implemented.
Yes.
Can you share us your experience with Johor Corp?
Yes, I am firmly of the belief that the business jihad ideology is a very powerful motivational force that we have been able to mobilize and harness, and this is reflected in the rate of success of young Malay Muslim executives, entrepreneurs unto themselves. With a difference, of course. These entrepreneurs in Johor Corporation, they do not own the businesses that they run. And the challenge before us in Johor Corporation as a GLC is always how to get that motivational force out of a group of people, and you cannot use one of the most powerful motivation factors, right. Ownership.
Yes.
And but we have seen, in spite of the fact that we don't have that ownership reward that we can offer to our people, this is where the business jihad as an idea comes in, extremely powerful. We have discovered over the years that young people, Malaysian, Muslims in particular, were prepared to give their all, to dedicate and sacrifice and do their best. And this is proven when we were able to list companies in the stock market, and Jacob was able to grow from zero base 40 years ago to what it is today, a 14 billion ringgit organization with market leadership positions in several businesses, including healthcare, palm oil, as well as overseas.
But then again, in a plural society like Malaysia, we have not just the Muslims, we have the Christians, Chinese. How do these people get involved? And I don't think that Johor Corp is just a sole Malay corporation. How do you get the other races to be involved as well in this?
Of course not. If you take one example of our core business, which is the healthcare, 60% of our specialist doctors, for example, are comprised of non-Muslims. It's only 40% or less that are Malays and Muslims. And I think there is no problem there at all. And this is, when I say that, I mean, it really is proven on what kind of achievement track record that KPJ registered. It is today one of the market leaders in healthcare, running 22 hospitals throughout the country. And with the involvement of everyone, which means really, this is, Amirul, why it is important for us to focus more on business jihad concept. Through economic activities, through businesses, we prosper the economy. And when you bring prosperity, it spreads to everybody, and it involves everybody. There is no exclusiveness. When we talk about business jihad, for example, if you follow strictly Islamic principles say in management as well as in corporate activities, you must, when you allocate responsibility, you must give it to the best and the most professional based on merit to whoever, irrespective of whether he's a Muslim or non-Muslim. And this was also displayed by the Prophet himself in his own circumstances when he entrusted even to many non-Muslims and non-Arabs who are the best at their respective fields, in their respective field, to undertake an assignment or a task or a duty.
Irrespective of religion or race, gender.
Gender and so on. And we see this in terms of, translated in terms of the track record, corporate business track record of Johor Corporation. And it is also proven, it's a question of also, business jihad is also emphasizing a lot on particularly opening, releasing people's energy. We do not focus, for example, on the best. In the private sector today, in the capitalist system, if you are a private sector enterprise, you can always select the best from the market and focus on the best. Therefore, it's elitist. You exclude a lot of people who, for example, who don't have the correct education, who does not have even enough money, for example, to invest and so on and so forth. But under the business jihad concept, as practiced by Johor Corporation, we open up opportunities for everybody. For example, in our healthcare, we have clear example of nurses, for example, people who started their career as a nurse, who became at the end of the day CEO of their companies, and irrespective of whether they are Malays or non-Malays. And we stand by that kind of record, and those are clear proof of how viable this business jihad concept is, how powerful it is, and why it is important for more and more corporations to adopt its practice, particularly if you are a GLC, government-linked company, which has no opportunity to reward people through stock options or privatization.
And in the example of Johor Corp, is irrespective of religion, irrespective of gender, and irrespective of whether you are Johorian or not.
Absolutely, because the Prophet, one of the Prophet's most famous saying is, well, the Quran itself also articulated this, that when you allocate trust, you must allocate it to the best who is able to carry it through. And there is a hadith which says that if you do not allocate trust to the people who are most capable of performing it, then you just wait for the destruction or the undoing of the organization or the assignment. So when you talk about actually living by the precepts of business jihad, that means you also have to translate all these Islamic principles and ideals into reality, into corporate practice. Hence, we have developed at Johor Corporation quite sizable body of corporate culture and values that are translated, embedded into the management system.
Right. Because I had to ask that question because there's a common misperception that in state SCDCs, whether it's Pahang or Selangor, it has to be from that particular state. So moving forward, what do you think will be the game changers in business jihad?
Well, business jihad itself as an idea, I think, is a game-changing idea. And it's game-changing particularly for the Muslims. It's very important today for Muslims to come up and find a solution to their problems. It's a major predicament, it's a major challenge for all Muslims throughout the world. In fact, today Muslims are frowned upon and in fact looked at suspiciously all over the world, particularly because of the association of jihad, direct only with violence. And the time has come for young Muslims, and particularly among entrepreneurs and businessmen, to come forward and translate the jihadi spirit. Imagine if you are able to harness and mobilize the energy that is offered by a jihad aspiration. Instead of channeling